Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father in heaven, bless us as we gather today for this meeting. Teach us to be generous in our outlook, courageous in the face of difficulty, and wise in our decisions. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Go ahead and call the workshop to order.
Chairman Directors, the first item on your workshop is a review of proposed amendments to the policies and procedures governing procurement of goods and services by the Hidalgo County Regional Mobility Authority. This item is in your workshop, item number 1. And there's a red line document in your packet. The title on that is Amended Policies and Procedures Governing Procurement of Goods and Services. It's got an initial adoption date of November 17th, 2006. If you thumb through it, the changes to the policy are all redlined. And what this change is primarily, there's a Code of Federal Regulations that governs procurement of professional services, i.e. engineering, surveying, architectural. For the authority to be in compliance with that Code of Federal Regulations and allow us to be reimbursed by the Texas Department of Transportation utilizing federal funds, our policies, our procurement policies must incorporate 18 different points that is in that Code of Regulations. Our policy had several of them already in place, and so the amendments that you see were to make sure that we complied with the 18 different points. There was items such as disclosure, suspension and debarment that we updated or added. And again, they're all noted as red lines in the packet. The most substantial amendments had to do with the actual procurement of the professional services, the notice for request for qualifications, the evaluation, ranking and selection, the disputes in that request for qualifications. And so all of those items were added to the policy to make sure that we were in compliance. And so unless there's any questions, it was really just to it was an addition to our procurement policy. We didn't really delete anything, we added to it.
You feel it's better now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And TxDOT would require this of the
Anyway.
authority. So this is a requirement. And these policies need to be in place before we even procure the services to be eligible. So there's gonna, even after the board adopts it, there's still one more step, and that is to get an approval from TxDOT. But it is an administrative approval at the local district that we will be receiving.
When you say better, does that mean that they're more defined and more restrictive?
No, sir, I think that's just Blakely can kind of chime in on this, but that's just a generic term for, maybe the proper term is maybe respondent instead of bidder for professional service. Bidder would be where they're submitting, let's say, a sealed proposal. These changes were primarily with requests for qualifications for professional services. And in summary, you can't submit a price. The professional services are selected based on qualifications. And so we select the consultant based on the most qualified consultant. After they're selected, then we negotiate price. So price cannot be considered in their submittal.
But I'm still getting lost. When you say better, what does that mean?
It means anybody that submits, whether it's a sealed bid, a request for proposal, that's typically what it means.
Okay.
Does it give that criteria for grading?
The criteria for rating, was it in there?
It requires us to have criteria for rating.
Yeah, it requires, and generally, I remember now, is that it depends on typically the criteria is project specific. depending on the complexity and the elements that we're needing to be, areas of expertise, the discipline. Typically, we grade on a 100-point scale, and so we'll divide up the criteria.
I've been in the meetings, the first my meeting I went at RMA, there was a 100-point scale, and most of the directors voted 90, 93.
Yes, sir.
And we had a couple vote 30 or 40, and so you can never make up if they're close.
Yeah.
So is that, can we do that internally ourselves and fix that?
Yes, sir. That's what we've been doing. Once you hired staff, we've been doing the rating and ranking, and,
Okay, so you're doing it.
yes, sir, we're doing it. We're doing-
Excellent. Those are long, long meetings.
Yes, sir. We are doing,
Recommendations that come back to the board, I think. is
Yes.
what it is.
Yeah,
Based on the score.
but I mean, you don't, that doesn't happen, I'm sure, with you all, right?
no, typically, we're a lot closer. I mean, once in a while, you'll get an outlier.
Were you at that meeting? Way back in Wessico, or wherever?
Right, it was a mission, I think.
Right, once in a while, you'll get an outlier, you'll get somebody that will rank somebody high or low. But typically, the professional staff, we know a lot of the consultants, we know what their capabilities are, and so we can fairly rate them. We don't all land on the same score, but we're typically maybe a 10 to 15 to 20-point spread on the rating and the ranking.
But even then,
So what we do is we take the average for every consultant, and we come up with an average rating based on the scores from all the proposers.
Is the policy not compliant with the regulatory requirements from TechStot as we,
Right, the current policy is non-compliant. So
This one
this
would
is
be-
to bring it into compliance.
so before we go out to bids, we have to have the policy approved?
Yes, yes, sir.
so we're gonna vote it next month, or what?
No, it's on your regular agenda.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions?
How about changes to the policy? There's something in time that
So-
needs to be added, or
Right, so
what's the process there?
the process is the board adopts the changes to the policy. If you go back to the title page, you can see that this policy was initially adopted in 2006. It was amended in 2015, and so this is the most recent.
But this is only
will
for
be-
RFQ, right?
No, it's for procurement of goods and services, so this can be
Also.
anything. But what we updated had to do with the section that covers RFQs. That's the part that the Code of Federal Regulations,
So
that
let
we
me
want in
ask you this,
compliance.
since you've been here, we've had a few problems, you know. Has the corrective action plan in here yet? Honestly, I didn't read it. Of some of the concerns we've had in the past.
Yes, sir. I think a lot of that's already been addressed, yes, sir. We've gone through 2 or 3 procurements, and we haven't had any issues with those
But I'm talking
procurements.
with the new policy.
Yes, sir, with a new
Do we
policy.
use the new policy on this new procurements?
Well, we have our current policy is very similar to the policy that we're gonna adopt. It's just that the feds have a few more requirements. They get a little more down in the weeds, and so our policy has to reflect.
So that's because the state's using federal funds.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Well, that was my question, if it was more specific and more restrictive along the lines of the RFQ's proposals in relation to what the feds are requiring versus the state.
Well, it's just more, I wouldn't say it's more restrictive, it's just, it requires more information. It's a lot more detailed on what has to be in the RFQ when it's advertised. It's a little more detailed on how we have to rate and rank them, and then how we have
Probably
to.
more transparent.
Yeah, have more transparent.
that's good.
How we handle disputes, if there's disputes with the submittals, which our current policy was silent to, if there was a dispute. We hadn't had any disputes, and the feds, that's just an example where they require us to have a dispute resolution in the event somebody challenges a submittal.
And I think Alonso was trying to ask, Alonso, if I may, that there has been obviously some time back, I don't know, some situations where there may have potentially been a conflict. Does this new requirements maybe address those conflicts?
I think the conflict, to address the conflict, has always been there. I think where there's been some issues is with the rating and the ranking of consultants. And that's where there's been a little bit of issue in the past. And so the criteria and, you know, it's supposed to be very objective, but there's a little bit of subjectivity in there. And I think that before, because of that subjectivity, you would have a real large spread on the points. And so it was kind of hard to see where the consultants were actually were landing with their qualifications because of the variation of the various ratings and rankings. The staff didn't initially do the ratings and rankings, the board did. But now, probably for the last 5 years, staff has been doing the initial rating and ranking, taking them to the board, providing the board with a short list, and then the board has been deciding whether they want to interview the consultants and rate and rank them based on their, or rank them based on their interviews, and then select them. And that's our presentation, Chairman.
Other questions? I'm not gonna get a meeting to close the workshop.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order.
Chairman, the first item, Chairman Directors, the first item on your agenda is reports, is 1A, report on program manager activity for the 365 Tollway Project and IBTC environmental clearance document. Eric Davila will give you a brief report.
Good evening. So as the workshop just concluded, the 365 has essentially one critical item to get through on the update of policies so that we can continue on a two-pronged approach to approach the rebid and redesign of the 365 toll project. The first option is, and the preferred one, is to align our policies for the federal CFR, Code of Federal Regulations, in anticipation of perhaps that after the PO mergers, that there'd be more additional funding to do the project as fully scoped, as we led it in 2017. Approach number one. We know that we have a ways to go. The merger's just around the corner, so there's some time left on that. So that we can have forward momentum. Option number two, running in parallel, is to essentially allow ourselves to access federal funding that's allotted for the project, which is the real impetus for updating these policies for the federal procurement guidelines. When we do that, we'd be able to tap federal funding assigned to the project to fund the redesign work that needs to go into the rebid and rescoping of the project, as we presented in those, base bid and two bid alternates to build out the project from Cage, and a connector road to the Pharr Bridge, or to build the full section once we implement all the innovation that was developed during the original contract for 365. So in a nutshell, that's the big picture on how we're proceeding with 365. Are there any questions on that particular project?
No. Any questions?
No, hearing none. On IBTC, we're still moving forward with the environmental. We're essentially moving forward with the actual coordinating agencies. We coordinate via TxDOT, but our commitments are between the local government, which is the RMA, and the various state and federal agencies which govern, biological resources, historic, archaeological, and waters of the U.S. So we're at the point where we've already got all the base documents submitted. We've done the homework. Now we're going up to them to make the commitments. How are we going to make it right? If there was a particular impact in any one resource. So with that being said, we're moving forward with waters of the U.S. and archaeological resources as some of the probably more intensive mitigation plans that we have to come up with. And so we're proceeding with scheduling those meetings. So far, the schedule for clearance is still holding. And, barring any surprises or any changes, we'll definitely update and signal them to y'all. But as of now, everything's proceeding as planned. Any questions on IBTC? No?
Thank you, Eric.
Thank y'all.
Appreciate it.
Chairman, Directors, the next item is a consent agenda. All matters listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the governing body and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. However, if discussion is desired, that item or items will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately.
If there are no questions on the consent agenda, can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Motion by Alonso, seconded by Zeke.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same
Aye.
sign. Motion carries. Regular agenda.
Item 3A, Resolution 2019-26, approval of award of contract for title report and title commitment services to Sierra Title of Hidalgo County Incorporated for the 365 Tollway and International Bridge Trade Corridor projects. On February 11th of this year, the authority received responses in response to a solicitation for title commitment services and title report services. And that's part of our land acquisition program, where we've got to go out and figure out who owns title to land. And surveying is the other component to that. The Valley Land Title was on contract prior to this solicitation, but their contract did expire. We received two responses, one from Valley Land Title and the other one from Sierra Title, excuse me. Sierra Title was on contract prior to this. On June 7th, Valley Land Title rescinded their proposal. Staff is recommending award a contract to Sierra Title for title commitment and title report services. And that would be in the amount of $400 per title or title report.
So moved.
Can I get a motion to approve? Motion, can I get a second?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Item 3B, Resolution 2019-27, approval of amendments to policies and procedures governing procurement of goods and services by the Hidalgo County Regional Mobility Authority. Again, as discussed in workshop, the staff is recommending approval of the amendments to the policies and procedures as presented.
Could I get a motion for resolution of 2019-28, P, approval of Rio Grande, policies and procedures? Got a motion, can I get a second?
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
3C, Resolution 2019-28, approval of appointments to the Rio Grande Valley Metropolitan Planning Organization Policy Board and Technical Advisory Committee members for the Hidalgo County Regional Mobility Authority. Chairman, directors, as you know, the Hidalgo County MPO, the San Benito Harlingen MPO, and the Brownsville MPO have merged. Last week, there was a workshop to review the bylaws. Chairman De Anda is serving as the de facto representative for the authority right now on that MPO, on the Rio Grande Valley MPO. There will be, the inaugural meeting will be tomorrow, where they will be adopting the bylaws, setting meeting dates, et cetera. As part of the requirements of the bylaws, they're requiring a written appointment of members to the policy committee and to the technical advisory committee. Chairman De Anda served as the primary representative to the Hidalgo County MPO, and Director Forrest Reynolds served as the alternate. I, along with Eric Davila and Ramon Navarro, served as the proxies for the chairman and for the vice chairman. And on the technical advisory committee, I served, so does Ramon Navarro, and so does Eric Davila. So staff is recommending that the board consider appointing the same members to the new Metropolitan Planning Organization and Policy Board and Technical Advisory Committee.
When does that start, or what?
The first meeting will be tomorrow, where they'll be adopting the bylaws and meeting dates, et cetera.
So moved.
Got a motion? Motion and second, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Chairman, recommend that you entertain a motion to enter into executive session for items 6C and 6D under section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code.
A motion to go into executive session? Motion and second, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Should have been Jesse, the guy.
2:30, that was it? About 8 inches. In a matter of about 5 hours. Again? Yeah.
a motion to reconvene the meeting?
So move.
Motion second, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Chairman, we have no further business for the Board of Directors to consider.
Can I get a motion to adjourn? Motion second, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.